The horrific murder of Henry Callahan shocked the residents of Cedar Grove, a sleepy, attractive hamlet. An act of passion and treachery disrupted what seemed to be a quiet, close-knit suburban community, exposing the murky side of seemingly perfect lives. August of 2015. The Callahans were at the center of all of this chaos. For more than 15 years, Henry, a 50-year-old real estate tycoon, and his 48-year-old wife Clara, a 48-year-old boutique owner with a flair for fashion and a captivating personality, had been integral members of the community. Everyone in the neighborhood thought their marriage was too perfect, and they were right. They had a good friendship with the Parkers, the next-door neighbors. Simon is a professor at a university, and Emily is a landscape architect. Together with their 21-year-old son Jerry, they had recently relocated to Cedar Grove in search of a tranquil life away from the bustle of the city. These neighbors had no idea that things were going to take a bad turn in their lives. To put it mildly, this is the situation. Their lives were about to fall apart in a way that would shake the entire nation and community. Henry Callahan was an ambitious man from the beginning. Born from a middle-class Detroit family, he used a combination of charm and unwavering determination to work his way up through the real estate market with only sheer grit and intelligence. He had established his real estate empire by the time he was in his early 40s. His name was a byword for achievement, and he was the kind of man that everyone aspired to know. Clara, on the other hand, was raised in a wealthy family. She was raised in a setting that emphasized culture and refinement as the daughter of a well-known author and a classical pianist. Clara chose to put off her ambition of curating in a museum. She had studied art history in college, because her boyfriend wanted them to settle down first. In any case, he moved on to another lady after leaving her. She was devastated and had no desire to pursue her dream of opening a museum. Then she met Henry, with whom she fell in love right away and decided to tie the knot. That's when things occurred. She took in after they were married for 2 years. The family was ecstatic, and Clara was especially delighted about it. Their family was the epitome of bliss, and Henry was taking more time off from work to care for her. Unfortunately, things took a turn for the worse when their prematurely born kid passed away, and Clara's subsequent attempts to conceive failed. Let's rewind their encounter a little. In 2000, they happened to cross paths at a charity auction. Henry, who had no personal connections and was financially successful, was instantly enthralled with Clara's grace and elegance. After going through a rough relationship and heartbreak, Clara, a former model, saw Henry as an opportunity to start over. He promised her security in her finances as well as emotional support. Their ardent and quick courtship culminated in a lavish wedding, held in a historic mansion with silk drapes, glittering chandeliers, and a garden full with thousands of roses. The ceremony was opulent. Henry appeared to be a successful businessman, while Clara was dressed in a fashionable gown. Their marriage was happy for the first few years. Henry's career took off, bringing him recognition and fortune. Because of his achievements, he was made a partner at his firm. Clara opened her business as her haven, a place to express her creativity and love of all things stylish. Clara felt like she had a purpose when the boutique flourished and gained popularity among the town's elite. Their ideal life grew stale as the years went by. Henry's job required additional time due to his frequent business travels and late-night office work. The pair, who was once inseparable, drifted apart. Clara threw herself into her store as she grew more and more alone. She grew her company, had parties, and tried to use her employment to fill the emptiness. Their child's death marked a sea change for them. It was a silent wound that both felt profoundly, but neither mentioned. Their empty nursery served as a continual reminder of their loss. The stress was increased by not being able to conceive again. Emptiness replaced Clara's waning visions of a family. She went to fertility treatments by herself and silently endured the psychological and physical toll. Despite his support, Henry avoided talking about the shared grief and instead immersed himself in his work. Once a place of warmth and joy, their house became quiet and frigid. Clara would spend hours sitting in the nursery, surrounded by the unrealized expectations of becoming a mother. When Henry got home, he withdrew into his study and lost himself in his work, trying to push away the intolerable truth. Their talks become acerbic and less personal. Sadly, Clara's boutique turned into a haven from her empty house. She stayed for extended periods of time, temporarily finding comfort in the creative endeavors and activities. Nevertheless, each night she arrived back to a place that seemed more and more like it belonged to a stranger. They could feel the gap between them, which neither of them knew how to fill. Their lives became tense as a result of their unsaid worries and shared anguish. The Callahans' marriage had reverted to its former state by the summer of 2015. They remained the golden pair to outsiders. Henry was about to seal a huge deal that would guarantee him a place in the business. Clara's store was booming, and her creations were winning over customers. But they were just roommates when it came to private. They resembled strangers more. There were few conversations, mostly about social events and scheduling, with every touch serving as a reminder of their unsaid anguish and unfulfilled expectations. Physical closeness had become rare. It was simpler for Henry and Clara to keep up the appearance of happy than to face the gap that had developed between them. They had no idea that this delicate equilibrium was going to be upset in a way that would impact not just their lives, but also the community of Cedar Grove as a whole. In an attempt to start again, the Parker family had moved into the home next door to the Callahans at the beginning of 2011. Simon, a renowned professor of literature, had accepted a job at a local institution because it offered a more tranquil lifestyle away from the busy capital. As a prosperous landscape architect, Emily had welcomed the change as a chance to apply her imaginative vision to new projects. Jerry, their junior college student who studies environmental science, was working on a local conservation project over his summer break at home. The Parkers blended in perfectly with Cedar Grove's laid-back atmosphere, swiftly earning a reputation for kindness and intelligence. Simon gained acclaim from his captivating lectures at the university, while Emily became the buzz of the neighborhood with her gorgeous garden designs. Despite her initial reluctance, Emily eventually came to appreciate the peace and beauty of their new house. It was at a late June neighborhood block party that Jerry Parker developed a fresh perspective on Clara Callahan. The gathering was being hosted by the Callahan family, and Henry was the life of the party, talking about his newest business endeavors. Clara had withdrew to the patio in order to get some fresh air because she felt uncomfortable in the crowd. At the same time, Jerry happened to stroll outside, looking for a respite from people. Jerry made eye contact with Clara and tentatively smiled. They started talking about gardening, which Clara had just been interested in as a way to pass the time when she was alone. As a result of Jerry's environmental scientific expertise, a relationship started to develop. Clara and Jerry found opportunities to spend time together throughout the ensuing weeks. Jerry accepted Clara's invitation to assist with her garden, since it would allow him to put his academic knowledge to use. They shared their first kiss on a rainy afternoon in early July, as you might or may not expect. While working on a new garden arrangement, Jerry stopped over, and they were forced to take cover in the Callahan sunroom due to an unexpected downpour. There was an unspoken tension in the air as they stood at the window and watched the rain. Feeling a connection for the first time in years, Clara leaned in and gave Jerry a kiss. Jerry experienced a mixture of thrill and terror after the kiss. Their interactions became more frequent and intense as they found themselves attracted together despite the complexity of their feelings. They knew the hazards and proceeded with caution. They met in private, usually in quiet areas of town or Clara's boutique. But as summer wore on, it got harder and harder to keep their secret. They were almost apprehended multiple times. Though their concern was increased by near misses and close discoveries, their strong feelings kept them returning. It was a far cry from her life with Henry, to be honest, but Clara felt a revival of passion and joy. Jerry discovered that he was becoming more and more in love with the older married woman as he was drawn to Clara's elegance and the excitement of their forbidden relationship. Cedar Grove woke up to another scorching summer day on August 10, 2015. It was a crucial day for Henry Callahan. He was going to close his biggest deal yet, and this was a very important meeting. Clara was left alone in bed, lost in thought, as he departed early. Clara texted Jerry, requesting that he come over in the afternoon, knowing that Henry would be gone all day. Jerry was starting to feel more uneasy about his feelings for Clara at this point. He was in love with the woman, but there was just no logic to this passion. Jerry then took the message as a chance to face his emotions and decided it was time to put a stop to this. In response, he agreed to meet. It was a long day for them both. Distracted and nervous, Clara went through the routine in her boutique. Jerry was having trouble concentrating as he worked on his conservation project. Jerry's heart was racing when he drove to the Callahan residence at 1:30 p.m. With a timid smile, Clara greeted him and escorted him to the sunroom where their first kiss had occurred. Jerry started to say something, but Clara mistook his hesitancy and kissed him silent. Their doubts were overpowered by their need for each other, and they surrendered to the moment despite their reservations. Henry Callahan was in his office across town, growing increasingly frustrated. He knew he was going to have a long night of revisions and discussions because the numbers didn't add up for his deal. Henry Callahan decided quickly. He would return to the office later to wrap things before supper, taking some time to gather his thoughts and reorganize at home. His automobile came into their Crestwood Lakeside Homes driveway at 2:15 p.m. Though Jerry Parker's rusted truck was parked a short distance down the street, he paid it no mind. He unlocked the front door and pondered that he was probably helping Clara with some errands. The house seemed strange, even though it was silent. There was a glass of half-empty orange juice on the kitchen counter. Clara wasn't even an orange fan, so this was really strange. Then he heard it, a sound from upstairs that was muffled. With a frown, he ascended the stairs, the sound intensifying near the main bedroom. His memories of what he saw when he opened the door would last a lifetime. Jerry Parker, the neighbor's 21-year-old son, was in their bed with his wife, the lady he had loved for 15 years, but he never believed they were close. Henry's dismay gave way to wrath. He asked, "What the hell were they doing?" and pushed forward before he had time to consider. Jerry flipped over the nightstand as he frantically tried to get out of bed. With a scream, Clara attempted to wrap the covers about her body. Henry lunged forward, driven by his rage, and plucked Jerry by the collar, pulling him off the bed. Jerry gasped and struggled, pleading with Henry to give him an explanation. Henry, though, was irrational and had his fists flying. Jerry's hand made its way to the heavy light on the bedside table among the pandemonium. He swung it about furiously, desperation propelling him. With a terrible thud, the lamp made contact with Henry's head. With astonishment and treachery in his eyes, Henry faltered and fell to the ground. The room emptied into eerie silence. Clara shrieked, breaking the silence as she covered herself and tried to take in what had just happened. Blood quickly gathered around Henry's still body. With shaky hands and a look of shock and astonishment on his face, Jerry dropped the lamp. His voice was hardly a whisper as he turned to face Clara. "How did we proceed?" With trembling but unwavering resolve, Clara demanded that they conceal the body. She told Jerry that she was unable to allow him to be put in jail. Her eyes were giddy with terror when she uttered this. Jerry gave a blank nod. their minds racing with anxiety and panic. They rapidly dressed. Henry's body was struggling under its weight as they dragged it down the stairs after wrapping it in a sheet. The work was exhausting, with sorrow and despair accompanying every step. Panting from the effort, they finally succeeded in heaving Henry's body into Jerry's truck bed. To give the impression that Henry had left, Clara took his car to a nearby parking lot and parked it there. After that, she went back home, where she and Jerry started the unpleasant chore of clearing up the blood. The smell of bleach mixed with their shame made every swipe of the cloth feel like a betrayal. It felt like a murder scene in the master bedroom, which had formerly been a haven. Clara and Jerry avoided each other for 2 days because of the pressure of their secret. Henry's co-workers were informed by Clara, who took calls from his office, that he was away on business. However, Henry's office sent someone to the residence to see how he was doing after he missed a crucial meeting. Standing at the door with skepticism in his eyes, the HR manager questioned her about why she hadn't reported her missing. With her heart racing, Clara attempted to maintain composure, pretending that she believed he was traveling for work. She made the immediate decision to call the police in order to allay suspicions. The stress increased when the police showed up promptly. Clara was finding it difficult to remain calm as they started their investigation and interrogation. Jerry, meantime, was back at school, terrified and overcome with remorse. He had stopped talking to Clara, and they had decided to keep quiet until things had cooled down. Laura Mitchell, a detective, was given the case. An experienced detective with an acute intuition, she knew right away that something wasn't right. She asked standard inquiries at first, but soon got more in-depth. Clara's anxiety was evident, and her account was riddled with gaps. Mitchell's observant eyes picked up on every quiver in Clara's voice and every discrepancy in her story. The case was getting more complicated, and suspicion stretched farther across Cedar Grove. Detective Laura Mitchell started questioning Clara while closely monitoring her every action. When had Clara seen her spouse last? She inquired. In an attempt to seem convincing, Clara said he had departed on Monday morning for a business trip. Clara shook her head when asked about specifics of the trip, saying that he was paid to keep his whereabouts a secret. Mitchell scribbled notes, nodding, and asked to see Henry's emails and phone logs. Feeling stuck, Clara nodded. The inquiry grew more intense over the course of the next few days. Nothing in Henry's email and phone correspondence suggested a work travel, according to Mitchell's team. The day Henry vanished, neighbors reported seeing Jerry's pickup at the Callahan residence, which prompted Mitchell to go back to Clara. Clara lied when asked about Jerry's truck, claiming he was assisting with some yard work. Skeptical, Mitchell pointed out that yard work in the middle of a sweltering July afternoon seemed improbable, but she ignored it for the time being and turned her attention to Jerry Parker. Jerry was at his school when Mitchell approached him. Jerry was having trouble remembering Henry's lifeless body. Jerry's voice was shaking as he repeated Clara's falsehood about doing yard work when asked about his attendance at the Callahan residence. Mitchell didn't believe him, feeling his anxiety. She said it would be best if he came clean, but Jerry remained calm and insisted he didn't know anything. Mitchell was aware that she required further proof. When she summoned forensic experts to the Callahan residence, they found bloodstains that had been hurriedly cleaned off. Clara's tale started to get more complicated. Mitchell saw gaps in Clara's chronology and growing uneasiness. Clara tried to keep up the front, but the pressure got to her. An anonymous tipster who had regularly observed Clara and Jerry together and their seemingly personal conversations was the source of the breakthrough information. As Mitchell dug further into their connection, he found more intimate emails and texts that demonstrated the extent of their affair and their valiant attempts to conceal it. Clara's cool head started to fade when she saw the proof. She attempted to minimize their relationship as a simple friendship when Mitchell pressed her to explain the interactions with Jerry, but Mitchell was unyielding. The detective cited the blood traces discovered in the residence, and made the point that friends don't exchange messages like these. Clara refused to back down, and said that Henry had left for a work-related trip. Mitchell returned her focus to Jerry, who had been trying to keep his distance from Clara. She made arrangements for Jerry to be brought in for additional interrogation. Jerry made the decision to consult a lawyer as he felt pressured. Jerry's defenses were undermined during the interview when Mitchell presented the facts piece by piece. In an attempt to get the truth, she brought up the blood discovered in the home and the absence of a business trip. Jerry's lawyer encouraged him to remain silent, and it said volumes. The blood evidence was verified by forensic specialists to be Henry's. Mitchell secured a search warrant for Jerry's truck based on the growing body of evidence, and inside they discovered additional blood traces as well as fibers that matched the sheets from the Callahan residence. Henry's body was found, hastily hidden, in the next parking lot. Having obtained indisputable proof, Mitchell moved quickly to place Clara and Jerry under arrest. With a dejected expression on her face, Clara was brought into custody. Jerry was taken into custody, his destiny determined by the overwhelming evidence of their offense. The affair stunned the residents of Cedar Grove. The perfect facade was permanently destroyed. Further secrets surfaced during the trial. Henry's co-workers attested to his increasing stress levels and his frequent disagreements with Clara. The tension that the neighbors sensed in the Callahan home was discussed. The jurors had to go through a convoluted web of acts and intentions that all culminated in the tragic finale. Clara stood up, her nerves exploding from the weight of her shame. She acknowledged the romance, but she maintained that Henry's death was never her intention. She explained how Jerry had grabbed the lamp in a frenzy just before Henry passed away. Jerry described the fatal day with a mixture of regret and grief, almost bringing tears to his eyes. He related the encounter, the battle, and the instant of blind fear when he struck Henry. Jerry's parents sat in the courtroom, shock and sadness written on their features. As their son described how he had came into contact with Clara and how his actions had resulted in Henry's death, they listened. The image of their cherished son and what had happened could not be reconciled. Jerry attempted to keep a stoic facade, but their anguish was evident. Mitchell's evidence was very important. She described the forensic evidence that finally resulted in Clara and Jerry's arrests, the inquiry, and the contradictions in their accounts. She described the blood traces at the Callahan home, the fibers in Jerry's pickup, and the discovery of Henry's body. Her deliberate delivery conveyed a strong sense of shame. The jury deliberated for days in a tense courtroom. When the jury eventually returned with a verdict, the weight of the decision was apparent, and the stillness in the room was nearly unbearable. The choice was made public by the foreman. Jerry Parker, you are guilty of second-degree murder in our opinion. We find you guilty of being an accessory to murder. Clara Callahan. Jerry was given a 25-year term, and Clara was given a 15-year sentence. The people of Cedar Grove were left to pick up the pieces, their lives irrevocably altered by what had happened. Haunted by the case, Detective Mitchell couldn't help but speculate about what may have happened if other decisions had been taken. Ordinary people, the Callahans and Parker's lives had entwined in ways that no one could have foreseen. The tragedy that occurred served as a sobering reminder of how flimsy normalcy can sometimes be. After the silence that followed, Cedar Grove found it difficult to revert to its tranquil state. The Callahan case cast a long shadow, serving as a continual reminder that even the most picture-perfect towns can have sinister secrets. The Parker family's anguish served as a monument to the unfortunate affair's far-reaching effects, as they became reclusive after learning of the disclosures and losing their son to the criminal justice system. The Callahan mansion, once a representation of harmony and prosperity, was deserted, a silent reminder of the life that had once flourished inside its walls. Thank you for watching, and if you want to see many more incredible stories, please think about subscribing to the channel.